Well, 4 Ukrainian provinces along the Russian border held unlawful referendums that were widely denounced in the West as attempts to justify Russia's armed involvement. The ANC Youth League defended its choice to send several observers to the Ukrainian referendums Russia organized to determine whether or not to incorporate the conquered territories into Russia. Joining me now to discuss this further is Khulekani Skosana, who is part of the ANC Youth League Task Team. Khulekani, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us in our studios this morning. I think firstly, just take us through your motivations, for being a part, participating rather, in this observer mission.
Thank you for having us and greetings to the viewers. We are children of a liberation movement that fought for a very long time to get South Africa to be where it is. And we are taught in the ANC to be young people who go and seek information for themselves. We are not spoon-fed in the ANC on views and how we must interpret and view the world. It is allowed in the ANC that we go and see the world with our own eyes. As you would note, the Ukraine-Russia conflict is a very important moment in history. And for us, especially because it affects us directly as young people of South Africa in terms of the prices of a lot of things. So it's important that when we want to have a perspective and we want to explain to South African young people what's happening there, we don't depend on information that has been cooked for us. It's important for us as a generation of young people of 2022 to actually go to the Donbass itself on the ground and engage with the people directly, as opposed to being told by elites as to what they want. And we went there on an observer mission. And an observer mission is exactly that, a process of observation. To observe does not mean we are pledging political allegiance to this side or that side. Our allegiance is with the people, and that is what we're told, that we must be loyal to the people. And if there is anyone that is being oppressed anywhere in the world, we will go and hear how and what we can help it with. And in this process, it was to go and observe whether the referendum is fair, whether people are allowed to participate freely, whether they are not being forced to enter into voting stations, and we engage them. I can tell you now, we visited refugee camps in Zaporizhia and in Kherson. It was painful to hear that on TV, the Ukraine government says it's defending its people. But we witnessed with our own eyes shelling of refugee camps. I think that if the narrative was that they are protecting the people there, they would be focused on military installations. But people are dying. And for us, it's important that we hear what they want. If Kyiv is serious about allowing its people to speak for themselves, then they should have allowed this process without blocking anyone. And the only guns that we witnessed there are from the Kyiv administration. We want to say that we maintain the position of the African National Congress. The ANC is a non-aligned movement, but that does not mean that we will swallow everything that comes from the Western America.
But I want to talk about that a little bit, because your presence there at the referenda can send an implied message of support to the Russians for their war efforts in the Ukraine, while your mother body has pretty much sustained a neutral stance when it comes to this particular issue. You don't think that your presence there potentially compromises the ANC-led government's position on this issue, one that is a very sensitive international and diplomatic matter?
When the Democratic Alliance sent Mmusi Maimane to Israel on a so-called observer mission for the Israeli perspective on the Palestine and Israeli conflict, that was not interpreted as support. To observe is to observe, and to support is to support. When Soli Mapaila went to Taipei against our laws, South Africa actually has a position officially on the recognition of China. We stand with one China policy. But you had a mayor of the DA go to Taipei on state funds, by the way, to go there and contravene the laws of our country. So we do not think that, I think I've went to school and I understand the word of observe. And to observe is to go and hear both sides. And I think the referendum was really an opportunity for the people to speak for themselves.
Talking about the referendum, these are occupied territories along the eastern and southern borders of Russia and Ukraine. Have you considered the possibility that the integrity of the vote itself may be compromised? I mean, if another nation invaded your home country and the assailants then gave you an opportunity to vote on, I suppose, the justification, the morality of the invasion itself, how honest an opinion do you think you'd be able to provide in that environment?
Yeah, but that's where we differ with you. We don't think that the Russian Federation went to occupy a territory. The Russian Federation and President Putin went to those regions to go and save Russian-speaking people who are being hunted. We have maintained that if there is oppression in Palestine, we will speak about it. By the way, they do not speak about that. They are sending an unprecedented amount of weapons to Ukraine. We don't know what is the plan. Why would you send billions and billions of weapons to Ukraine if the interest is on the side of the people, as opposed to giving the people a chance to speak for themselves through the vote?
There is also a photo op with you and Russian President Vladimir Putin. I want to ask you about that, because don't you think that in any way sort of questions your ability to be objective in that environment? My
ability to be objective would have been questioned if I had a photo with Charles or I had a photo with the Queen. My soul is at peace, because as the youth of the ANC in 2022, we will be found on the right side of history. And the right side of history is with our generation and with the oppressed people of the world, all over the world, just like our forebearers in the movement.
You're talking about sides. Your mother body is talking about neutrality. Which is it?
The ANC is not talking about neutrality. The ANC is speaking about non-alignment. That means that we will not willy-nilly be pushed into, for example, sanctioning Russia. We see the Russia special operation as a response to NATO expansionism. Since 1949, NATO has been expanding towards Russian territory. And you would note that Ukraine is only 30 years old. It is a former Soviet territory, right? So these things of that area...
Khulekani, unfortunately, we have to wrap up. We have run out of time. But thank you so much for coming into our studios and joining us for that conversation. That was Khulekani Skosana, who's part of the ANC Youth League Task Team.